It was an ordinary Thursday when Steph Curry walked silently through the sterilized corridors of Oakland Regional Hospital. His footsteps echoed softly on the polished floor, while nurses whispered in respectful recognition. But the NBA's biggest star wasn't there for publicity or promotional events. He was there for Tyler Brooks. To understand why the man who revolutionized world basketball left his intense training routine to spend an afternoon in a hospital, we need to go back 3 months in time, when the life of a 16-year-old young man changed forever in a matter of seconds. Tyler Brooks woke up that Tuesday morning with the same enthusiasm as always. The smell of fried bacon wafted through the family kitchen, mixed with the contagious laughter of his younger sister Emma, who was telling jokes while preparing her school lunch. Have you ever stopped to think about how the most important days of our lives begin so ordinarily? Tyler certainly didn't imagine that this would be the last normal morning he would have for a long time. "Don't forget basketball practice today," shouted his mother, Sarah Mitchell, from the kitchen, while Tyler tied his sneaker laces. It was the same ritual as always. She always reminded him. He always responded, "I know, Mom," in that typical teenage tone. Tyler was the kind of kid all parents would like to have. Good grades, respectful, passionate about basketball since he was 8 years old. On the walls of his room, Steph Curry posters dominated every available space. Not just because Curry was incredible on the court, but because Tyler saw something deeper in him. "He plays differently," Tyler always told his friends. "He doesn't just play to win, he plays to inspire." Something that touches deeply is realizing how the heroes we choose reveal who we want to become. For Tyler, Steph Curry represented more than skill. He represented the possibility of making a difference by being authentic. That morning, Tyler left home at exactly 7:47 a.m., as he did every day. 15 minutes walking to school, always by the same route. 3 blocks forward, turn right on Oak Street. 2 more blocks to Westfield High School. The morning sun created elongated shadows on the sidewalks, and Tyler walked at the pace he had perfected over 3 years. Not too fast to avoid arriving sweaty, not too slow to avoid being late. It was an exact science that any American teenager had mastered. He was thinking about the afternoon practice when it happened. The driver would later say that the sun momentarily blinded him. Security cameras would show that he was within the speed limit. Investigators would conclude that it was an inevitable accident, a tragic combination of circumstances that no one could have predicted. But for Tyler, none of that mattered when the blue sedan turned the corner at high speed and hit him while he was crossing the street. The sound of the impact echoed through the block like a metallic scream that cut through the silent morning. It was impossible not to feel the weight of that moment, as if time had stopped to witness something that should never have happened. Neighbors ran from their houses. Someone called 911. Sarah Mitchell received the most devastating call any mother can receive. "Your son has been in an accident. Come quickly to Regional Hospital." When Tyler opened his eyes for the first time in the hospital 3 days later, the world had completely changed. Colors seemed different. Sounds arrived like distant echoes. And the pain was a constant companion he was still learning to know. Dr. James Wilson, the neurosurgeon responsible for the case, explained to the family with that delicacy that experienced doctors develop. Tyler suffered severe head trauma and multiple fractures in his right leg. He will recover, but it will be a long process. What the doctor didn't say, but what the family perceived in the silences between words, is that long could mean months, maybe years, and that recover didn't necessarily mean return to being like before. Tyler Brooks, the boy who dreamed of playing college basketball, who imitated Steph Curry's shots in his backyard, who planned to try for a sports scholarship, now struggled just to remember what day of the week it was. Naturally, this leads us to a question that haunted everyone around him. How does a 16-year-old young man find strength to face such a brutal reality? The answer came unexpectedly, during a particularly difficult afternoon, in the third week of hospitalization. Tyler was watching a Golden State Warriors game on the small television in his room when he saw Steph Curry make an impossible play, a three-point shot at the last second that guaranteed victory. And for the first time since the accident, Tyler smiled. "I want to see him play again," Tyler whispered to Emma, who was sitting beside the bed. "When I get out of here, I want to go to a game." Emma held her brother's hand, feeling both the strength and fragility in those words. Great dreams are born in the most unlikely moments, aren't they? There, in that hospital room, surrounded by machines and medications, Tyler was planting the seed of hope he needed to move forward. But what none of them knew was that this seed was about to grow in a way that would change not only Tyler's life, but touch the hearts of millions of people around the world. The doctors talked about months of physiotherapy. The specialists mentioned necessary adaptations. Everyone had an opinion about what Tyler should or shouldn't expect from his recovery, except Tyler himself. He had only one simple and powerful goal: to be well enough to see Steph Curry play in person. It was a dream that seemed almost impossible for someone who still needed help to sit up in bed, but it was also the only thing that made sense in a world that had turned upside down. Can you perceive how sometimes we need something seemingly unreachable to give us strength to reach what's right in front of us? For Tyler, the prospect of seeing his idol play became the motivation for each painful physiotherapy session, each frustrating exercise, each small progress celebrated by the hospital professionals. What's most impressive is how hope can flourish in the most unlikely places. There, between white walls and the constant smell of disinfectant, Tyler was discovering a version of himself he didn't even know existed. A stronger, more determined version, more focused on what really mattered. But while Tyler fought his daily battle against pain and frustration, something extraordinary was happening outside those hospital walls. Emma, his 12-year-old sister, was about to do something that would change everything. And it was then that Tyler Brooks's story stopped being just about recovery and became about the transformative power of human compassion. Emma Brooks was only 12 years old, but she possessed the kind of determination that moves mountains. While watching her older brother fight against pain every day, an idea began to form in her young but determined mind. It was a Friday night when she sat at the family computer, her small fingers hesitating over the keyboard. The blue light from the screen illuminated her concentrated face as she thought about the right words to say. How is it possible that a 12-year-old child knows exactly what the world needs to hear? Emma began to write a letter. Not an ordinary letter, but a message straight from the heart. Raw, honest, loaded with fraternal love and desperate hope. "Dear Steph Curry," she typed, "my name is Emma Brooks, and my brother Tyler is your biggest fan. He always said that you don't just play to win, but to inspire people. Now he needs inspiration more than ever." The screen blinked while Emma paused, wiping away a tear that insisted on falling. Something that touches deeply is realizing how the most sincere moments of life arise when we have nothing left to lose, only love to offer. She continued writing, telling about the accident, about Tyler's dreams of playing basketball, about how he watched Warriors games even when the headache was almost unbearable. But mainly, she wrote about hope. Tyler talks about walking normally again. He talks about playing again. He talks about seeing you play in person one day. I know you must receive thousands of letters, but if you could just maybe send a video or something? He doesn't know I'm writing this. I just want to see my brother truly smile again. Have you ever felt the weight of carrying the hope of someone you love? Emma was doing exactly that, transforming her fraternal love into action, even without any guarantee of response. On Saturday morning, she posted the complete letter on Twitter, tagging him Steph Curry 30 and adding some hashtags she had seen other fans use. Emma didn't have many followers, only 47 people, mainly school colleagues and some relatives. What happened next surprised even Emma. The first person to share was Amanda Foster, Emma's school physical education teacher who had followed Tyler's situation since the accident. This girl is 12 years old and is fighting for her brother's happiness. If this isn't love, I don't know what is, she wrote when retweeting. Naturally, this leads us to a reflection on how small actions can create giant waves. Emma's letter began to spread organically, touching hearts she never imagined she could reach. In just a few hours, the tweet had been shared hundreds of times. People who had never heard of Tyler Brooks began commenting, offering prayers, words of support, similar stories from their own families. Daniel Patel, a businessman from San Francisco, shared, adding, "I lost my son in an accident 2 years ago. I know what this family is going through. Steph Curry, if you see this, please make something magical happen." It was impossible not to notice how Tyler's story was awakening memories and emotions in completely unknown people. Pain has a universal language, but so does hope. And Emma had found a way to speak both. By Sunday morning, the tweet had truly gone viral. More than 10,000 shares, thousands of comments, and something even more powerful. Major influencers and celebrities began to amplify the message. Alex Chen, host of a popular sports program, dedicated 3 minutes of the Sunday show to read the complete letter, on air. "If you know someone who knows Steph Curry, please make this message reach him," he said, with his voice choked with emotion. What's most impressive is how a letter written by a 12-year-old girl was mobilizing a network of thousands of people united by a common goal, bringing hope to a boy they didn't even know personally. But while the internet was boiling with shares and supportive comments, Steph Curry was completely unaware of the emotional storm forming around his name. It was Sunday morning when Isha Curry woke up and checked her social media, as she habitually did. She was having coffee when she saw that several people had tagged Steph in a tweet that was exploding on the networks. "Love," she called Steph, who was playing with the children in the living room. "You need to see this." Steph approached, still smiling from some game with Cannon, but his expression changed completely when he began to read Emma's words. The silence that followed was loaded with emotion, the kind of silence that precedes decisions that change lives. "Great people make a difference when no one is looking," Steph had once said in an interview. But there, with thousands of people literally looking and waiting for his reaction, he faced an opportunity to make a difference under the spotlight. Can you perceive how moments like this truly test a person's character? Anyone can be kind when it's easy, but responding with love when the whole world is watching, that reveals who you really are. Steph read the letter 3 times. With each reading, something moved inside him, a mixture of responsibility, compassion, and determination that he knew well. It was the same feeling that made him practice shots for hours, that made him study plays until late hours, that had transformed him into the player he was. "I need to do something," he said to Isha, running his hand through his hair, a gesture she knew well, and that meant Steph was processing something important. "What are you thinking?" she asked, already knowing from her husband's expression that it wouldn't be just a video or a Twitter message. "I'm going to visit him," Steph responded, with that calm determination that always characterized him. "I'm not just going to send a video, I'm going to the hospital." Isha smiled. After all these years of marriage, she was still surprised by Steph's ability to go beyond what was expected. "When?" "Tomorrow. I'll cancel whatever is necessary." And there, that Sunday morning, while thousands of people were still sharing Emma's letter, hoping for some sign that Steph had seen it, he was already planning something that would exceed any expectation. But then, something happened that complicated everything. It was Monday morning when Marcus Williams, Steph's assistant, called with complicated news. "Steph, I saw about the kid in the hospital. I would love for you to be able to visit him, but we have a problem. The playoffs start next week, and the coach is demanding double practices. Besides, you have that commitment with Nike that can't be canceled." Steph listened in silence, but his mind was already decided. "Marcus, cancel whatever needs to be canceled. There's a 16-year-old kid who needs hope more than I need one more practice." "But Steph—" "No buts, Marcus. Some games you win on the court. Others you win in life. And this is a game I can't lose." It was impossible not to admire how Steph saw the situation. For him, it wasn't about publicity or public image. It was about a boy who was fighting a battle much harder than any playoff. That afternoon, while Steph secretly planned his visit to the hospital, Tyler was in physiotherapy, not imagining that his life was about to change in a way he could never have dreamed. And Emma? Emma continued obsessively monitoring the letter's shares, hoping for any sign that Steph Curry had seen her message. She had no idea that he had not only seen it, but was preparing for something that would touch millions of hearts around the world. It was a gray Wednesday when Tyler Brooks woke up to another day that promised to be the same as all the others since the accident. The familiar sound of hospital machines created that constant soundtrack he had learned to ignore, but which always reminded him where he was. "Good morning, champion," said Rachel Kim, the physiotherapist who had become almost a friend after weeks working together. "Today, we have a special session planned." Tyler sighed. Special in the hospital usually meant more difficult or more painful. But he had promised himself he would do whatever was necessary to leave there walking normally. While Tyler reluctantly prepared for another morning of frustrating exercises, Steph Curry was discreetly parking in the back of Oakland Regional Hospital, wearing a cap and sunglasses to avoid recognition. The nervousness he felt was different from any pre-game anxiety. On the court, he knew exactly what to expect. There, entering that hospital, he was stepping into completely unknown territory. Have you ever felt the weight of responsibility, of carrying someone's hope? Steph knew that for Tyler, this wouldn't be just a casual meeting with a celebrity. It would be the moment that could redefine his entire perspective on recovery. Dr. Christopher Lee, the hospital's medical director, met Steph at the staff entrance. "Mr. Curry, it's an honor to have you here. I must say, we're all very excited about your visit." "How is he?" Steph asked, going straight to the point that mattered most. "Tyler is progressing better than we initially expected," Dr. Lee explained as they walked through the corridors. "But the psychological aspect of recovery is as important as the physical. What you're doing today, This could make all the difference. It was impossible not to notice how the entire hospital had been taken over by a different energy. Nurses whispered among themselves, doctors found excuses to pass through the corridors, and there was an electricity in the air that only happens when something extraordinary is about to happen. Naturally, this leads us to a fascinating question. How is it possible that one person's presence can transform the atmosphere of an entire place? Steph Curry had become more than a basketball player. He was a symbol of hope and possibility. Meanwhile, Tyler was in the physiotherapy room, silently complaining about the balance exercises Rachel had planned for that morning. "I don't understand why I have to do this 1,000 times," Tyler muttered, struggling to maintain stability on one leg. "Because each repetition is rebuilding the connections in your brain," Rachel explained with infinite patience. "I know it's frustrating, but you're literally healing yourself with each movement." Tyler was about to make another sarcastic comment when the room door opened. Rachel looked back, and her face lit up with genuine surprise. "Tyler," she said softly, "you have a very special visitor." Tyler turned slowly, still supported by the parallel bars, expecting to see maybe a relative or school friend. But when the door opened completely and Steph Curry entered the room, Tyler's world literally stopped. The silence that followed was loaded with pure emotion, the kind of moment that marks a life forever. Tyler blinked several times, as if trying to confirm that this was real and not just another medication-induced dream. "Hi, Tyler," Steph said with that genuine smile that characterized him. "I heard you're my biggest fan." The tears came before Tyler could control them. Not tears of sadness or pain, but that kind of overwhelming emotion that arises when something impossible becomes reality right in front of you. You're really here?" Tyler managed to whisper, still gripping the support bars. "I'm here," Steph confirmed, approaching slowly. "And I came because your sister wrote a letter that touched my heart. She told me about what you're going through, about your dreams, about your strength. Something that touches deeply is realizing how Tyler tried to straighten up, tried to stand firmer on his legs, as if he wanted to show his idol that he was okay. It was the human instinct to want to impress those we admire, even when we're in our most vulnerable moment. Steph noticed immediately and did something no one expected. He sat in a nearby chair, placing himself at Tyler's same level. "You know what impresses me most about your story?" Steph asked, and Tyler shook his head, still processing the reality of the situation. "It's not the fact that you're recovering so well, it's the fact that you haven't given up on your dreams." Tyler let out a half-crying laugh. "But I don't even know if I'll be able to play basketball again." "Tyler," Steph said, standing up and facing the boy, "can I tell you a secret? When I was your age, everyone said I was too small for the NBA, that I wasn't strong enough, that I would never be able to compete with bigger players. What's most impressive is how Steph transformed that moment into a conversation between equals, not between celebrity and fan. He was genuinely connected with Tyler, sharing real vulnerability. The difference between giving up and succeeding," Steph continued, "isn't in what happens to you. It's in what you do with what happens to you." Tyler nodded, absorbing each word as if it were liquid gold. "Rachel told me you're making incredible progress in physiotherapy," Steph said, looking at the therapist who was watching emotionally. "Can I see some of the exercises?" And there, in the physiotherapy room of Oakland Regional Hospital, something magical happened. Steph Curry, the greatest shooter in NBA history, spent the next hour doing rehabilitation exercises alongside Tyler Brooks. They practiced balance together. Steph held Tyler's hands while he tried more difficult exercises. And when Tyler managed to take 5 consecutive steps without support, something he had achieved only once before, Steph celebrated as if it were a decisive shot in Game 7 of the finals. "That's it!" Steph shouted, jumping from his chair. "Did you see that, Rachel? 5 perfect steps." Tyler was radiant, not just because he had achieved a small milestone in recovery, but because Steph Curry, his Steph Curry, was genuinely proud of him. "I brought some things for you," Steph said, grabbing a backpack he had left in the corner of the room. First, he took out an autographed Warriors jersey. But not just any jersey. It was the jersey Steph had worn in the game when he broke the record for 3-point shots in the season. "This jersey was with me when I made history," Steph explained. "Now I want it to be with you while you make your own history." Tyler held the jersey as if it were the most precious treasure in the world, which, for him, it really was. But then Steph took something even more special from the backpack: a pair of basketball sneakers. "These are my size," Steph said with a smile. "But when you're ready to return to the court, I want you to wear them in your first game back." Tyler could barely speak. How did you know I wear the same size as you?" "Emma mentioned it in the letter," Steph smiled. "Little sisters know everything, don't they?" It was impossible not to notice how that moment had transcended anything Tyler or his family could have imagined. It wasn't just about meeting a celebrity. It was about genuine human connection, about renewed hope, about living proof that dreams can come true in the most unexpected ways. "Tyler," Steph said, getting serious for a moment, "I want you to know something. You inspire me more than I inspire you." Tyler looked confused. "How so?" "Because every day I wake up and choose to train, choose to improve, choose to pursue my goals. But you wake up every day and choose to fight against something much harder than any defense I've ever faced. And you do it with courage and determination that few adults have. Great people make a difference when they recognize greatness in others, and there Steph was showing Tyler that he saw a champion, not a victim." Time flew by, and when it finally came time for Steph to leave, both he and Tyler knew that something had changed forever. Not just for Tyler, but for Steph too. "I'm going to follow your recovery," Steph promised, "and when you're ready, I want you on the court with me for some shots." Tyler nodded, still holding the autographed jersey against his chest. When Steph finally left the room, he left behind more than gifts or inspiring words. He had left a new version of Tyler Brooks, a version that believed in the impossible because he had just lived it. And then something happened that no one in the hospital would ever forget. 3 hours after Steph Curry's visit, Tyler Brooks did something that surprised the entire medical team. He asked to do extra physiotherapy. "Tyler, you already did. Your session today," Rachel Kim said, confused. In 6 weeks of treatment, Tyler had never asked to do additional exercises. "I know," Tyler responded, still wearing the autographed jersey Steph had given him. "But I want to try those more difficult exercises you always mention. The ones you said we would try when I was ready." Rachel looked at Dr. Christopher Lee, who was observing from the door with an intrigued smile. Something had fundamentally changed in Tyler, and everyone could feel this transformation in the air. "Well," Rachel said, trying to hide her emotion, "if you're sure." In the next 40 minutes, Tyler tried exercises he had refused to do for weeks. Exercises that required balance, coordination, strength, and, mainly, confidence that his body could respond. It was impossible not to notice how Steph's presence had unlocked something in Tyler that no medication or therapy had been able to reach. The genuine belief that he could not only recover, but thrive. And when Tyler managed to walk 15 consecutive steps without support, more than triple his previous record, the entire physiotherapy team applauded as if they were witnessing a miracle. Because, in a way, they were. Have you ever witnessed the exact moment when someone decides to stop surviving and start living? Tyler had crossed that invisible line that separates resignation from determination, and everyone around could feel the difference. But the transformation didn't stop at physiotherapy. That night, when Emma came to visit Tyler as she did every day after school, she found a completely different brother. He was sitting on the bed, meticulously organizing Steph's gifts, but mainly talking about plans. "Emma, I've been thinking," Tyler said, his eyes shining with an energy she hadn't seen in months. "When I get out of here, I want to start training seriously again. Not just to go back to playing, but to get better than I was before." Emma felt tears forming in her eyes. Not tears of sadness, but that kind of emotion that arises when you see someone you love recover not just physical health, but their soul. "And Tyler," she said softly, "did Steph Curry really come? It wasn't a medication-induced dream?" Tyler laughed, a genuine, free laugh that echoed through the room like music. "He came, Emma, and you know what else? He said you're the best sister in the world for writing that letter." Naturally, this leads us to a reflection on the power of selfless actions. Emma had written that letter only out of love for her brother, without expectation of recognition. But she ended up creating a chain of kindness that would touch many more lives than she ever imagined. Because while Tyler was discovering a new version of himself, Steph Curry was also being transformed by the experience. That night, at home, Steph told Isha about every detail of the visit, about how Tyler had fought against tears upon seeing him, about the determination in the boy's eyes during the WUI exercises, about the pure and simple gratitude that radiated from every word Tyler spoke. "You know what marked me most?" Steph said, absent-mindedly playing with Riley while talking. "It wasn't his gratitude. It was his strength. Tyler is facing something that most adults couldn't bear, and he's doing it with a dignity that humbles me." Isha smiled, recognizing that tone in her husband's voice. It was the same tone he used when talking about moments that changed him deeply. "I want to follow his recovery," Steph continued. "Not just send messages or gifts. I want to be really present in his journey." What's most impressive is how genuine encounters between people create bonds that transcend the circumstances that originated them. Steph and Tyler had connected on a level that went far beyond idol and fan. They had become, in a way, partners in a journey of overcoming. And this partnership began to produce extraordinary results. In the following weeks, Tyler made progress that surprised even the most optimistic doctors. He began to walk longer distances, completely recovered his fine motor coordination, and mainly developed an attitude toward recovery that transformed his entire experience in the hospital. Dr. Christopher Lee carefully documented each milestone of Tyler's recovery, not just for medical purposes, but because he was witnessing something rare: how hope can accelerate physical healing. "In 30 years of medicine," he said to Rachel during a team meeting, "I've seen many cases of exceptional recovery, but I've never seen such a complete transformation of a patient's mental perspective in such a short time." Rachel nodded, remembering how Tyler had changed after Steph's visit. It's like he remembered who he really is. Not just a patient recovering, but a young athlete with dreams and goals. Great people make a difference when they help others rediscover their own greatness. And that was exactly what Steph had done for Tyler. But the story was far from over. 2 weeks after the visit, Steph personally called Tyler, not through assistants or intermediaries, but himself on the hospital room phone. "How are the exercises going, champion?" Steph asked, and Tyler almost dropped the phone from emotion. "Steph, I can't believe you called." "I promised I would follow your recovery," Steph said simply. "How are you feeling?" Tyler told about his progress, about the new exercises he was managing to do, about how he had started throwing paper balls into the room's trash can to keep the shooting motion. Steph laughed. "Paper ball in the trash counts as shooting practice. I used to do that too." And then Steph did something no one expected. "Tyler, what do you think about coming to watch a Warriors game when you're discharged? Courtesy of the house, of course." The silence on the other side of the line was deafening. Tyler was processing an offer that exceeded any fantasy he had created during the long nights in the hospital. You're serious?" Tyler finally managed to ask. "Completely serious. And if you're feeling well enough, how about shooting some balls with me before the game?" Something that touches deeply is realizing how Steph wasn't just offering a fan meeting. He was offering Tyler a chance to reconnect with his identity as a basketball player, to see himself again as an athlete, not as a patient. When Tyler finally hung up the phone, he did something that surprised even Emma. He asked them to call Rachel to schedule an extra physiotherapy session. "Why, Tyler?" Emma asked, curious about the sudden urgency. "Because," Tyler said, putting on the sneakers Steph had given him, "I have a game to prepare for." 3 weeks later, on a Friday night at Chase Center, something happened that would be remembered by everyone present. During warm-up before the game against the Lakers, Steph Curry brought a special guest to the court. Tyler Brooks, walking normally and wearing Steph's autographed jersey, entered the Warriors' court to shoot some balls with his idol. The crowd, which initially didn't understand who that young man was, exploded in applause when the announcer briefly told Tyler's story through the loudspeakers. And when Tyler hit his first three-point shot on the professional court, wearing the sneakers Steph had given him, there wasn't a dry eye in the stadium. Steph ran to Tyler and hugged him, whispering something in the boy's ear that no one else heard. But from the tears of joy on Tyler's face, everyone could imagine what had been said. 6 months later, Tyler Brooks returned to playing basketball at school. He didn't just return, he became the team captain and led the team to the state championship. And on the day of the final, in the stands, was Steph Curry, applauding every shot, every assist, every moment of Tyler's greatness. Because great people make a difference when they transform casual encounters into lasting relationships, when they transform moments of generosity into life commitments. The story of Tyler Brooks and Steph Curry teaches us that sometimes the most powerful healing doesn't come from medications or surgeries, but from genuine human connection, from renewed hope, from love in action. And perhaps the most powerful lesson of all is this: when we choose to extend our hand to someone in their most difficult hour, we don't know who will be more transformed in the process, whether the one who receives help or the one who offers it. Because in the end, both Tyler and Steph discovered that healing someone often heals you too.